Show 'em what we've got, chaps.
Hey folks, Healer here, and welcome to my review of the brand new special Tier 10 Royal Navy light cruiser, HMS Plymouth. Thanks to Wargaming for loaning this ship to me at no cost for this review. She is going to be released within the next day, so keep an eye out on the World of Warships website for the formal announcement. She will go on sale in the Armory for 27,000 steel. I'll start my review with a too long didn't read condensed summary, followed by some gameplay, talk about her playstyle, where I think she will be strong and where I think she'll have limitations. I'll then go to port and talk through her specifications. I'll review my build as far as upgrades, commander skills, signals, things like that, and I'll have some options that you may want to consider in your build. And then I'll wrap things up with some final thoughts about the ship, and I've also got the post-match results at the end of the video as well. So as always, I've left an index for the video in the description below, so if you want to skip around to different sections or you want to come back and watch or rewatch a particular section, feel free to use the index for that. So the too long didn't read condensed summary of the Plymouth is she is basically an Edinburgh on steroids with elements of the Belfast mixed in. So the Plymouth is based on, or modeled at least, on the Edinburgh hull. It's slightly larger. She has 16 guns. So she has 4 turrets, 4 rifles per turret. These are the same guns as on the Edinburgh. She has a repair party consumable, hydro, smoke, and radar. So she has that smoke radar combination that the Belfast has, but she also retains the heal and obviously the hydro. So she is very rich in consumables and will make for an excellent close support cruiser. And because she doesn't have to give up radar for smoke, she will be in some ways more effective than a Minotaur sometimes, because the Minotaur has to give up smoke in order to take radar. And like I said, the Plymouth here does not need to do that. Now, for those of you familiar with playing the Royal Navy light cruisers, she should be very easy to pick up. She has very similar characteristics with regard to handling, with regard to gun systems, her concealment, the consumables, etc. So for those of you, like I said, who are comfortable with how to play the Royal Navy light cruisers, she will be quite pleasurable to play, I think. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Royal Navy light cruisers, they are easily punished if they are caught out broadside, or even not necessarily broadside, but they are very rapidly focused down because they can be very powerful near caps and take out opponents very quickly with their high DPM. Now, the Plymouth does not have the same DPM level as the Minotaur. The Minotaur has a stupidly high DPM level. So with the main battery modification 3 upgrade in slot 6 for the Minotaur, she has a DPM of a staggering 686K per minute. Now the Plymouth with the main battery modification 3 can get the DPM up to 526K, which is still very high, but it's not obviously as strong as the Minotaur. But I think that the combination of having both smoke and radar without having given up one for the other is a reasonable trade-off for somewhat lower DPM, and you will still be able to mow down opponents near caps, especially those opposing destroyers, and again, that's going to make you that very, very strong close support cruiser. All right, so coming back to other aspects, comparing her with the Edinburgh. She has the same concealment at 9.2. She has similar, although slightly better AA. And like I said, when I go to the port and talk through her specifications, we'll talk through some of these. But some of her characteristics are also weaker at Tier 10 compared to the Minotaur. So she does not have anywhere near the AA capability of the Minotaur, although in the current, well, sort of cynical view of AA right now, many people may be like, whatever, because AA isn't that strong anyway. But for purposes of being able to defend yourself against planes, she will do perfectly fine against Tier 8 aircraft, but she will struggle more, or at least I found that I struggled more dealing with Tier 10 aircraft during my testing than I did with Tier 8. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so in this particular game, I'm going to have a few cutscenes where I'm going to skip around a little bit to sort of avoid some of the delays in inactivity or in action. So this particular match was not nearly my highest damage match that I played in her, but I think it's quite instructive, which is why I picked this match to showcase. So because there's only one destroyer per team, I am the best concealed cruiser in this game for my team. So I'm acting a little bit like a destroyer on this flank because our Benson went to the west side over by Alpha, and you can see him now. He's south of Bravo. But this is the current situation I'm in right now, or I was very briefly, was very dangerous because I waited a little too long before deciding to break away. This is going to turn out to be somewhat a stronger side for the opponents. My allies are way too far from the cap, and I'm much too close to the opponents. In fact, I'm now getting radared by the Alaska, which just showed up on the east side of Charlie, and I had not known until just now that he was in that position. So that's partly a reflection of me not having spotted him earlier. And so now I'm acting like the destroyer, trying to hold my fire and get away. In fact, I hold my fire for a very long time until I get back to the middle of the map. I get detected, and this is where I pop my radar because I know that I can detect whatever is detecting me, and it is the Benson, so I'm going to be able to put fire on him. But I'm also still very vulnerable because as soon as a Royal Navy light cruiser like this gets detected, they immediately get prioritized. And it's very much like being in the Minotaur, that as soon as you get detected and lit up, suddenly you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 ships targeting you, and you have to be very careful about when you choose to reveal your position. So for me, and in fact, there was that Citadel hit I was waiting for from the, I think that was the Georgia. So a lot of the times when I'm playing ships like this, where I want to support my allies and trying to take caps and defend caps, there will be periods where I'm not doing a whole lot. And I will, in this particular game, I had a sort of a cut situation where I left the east side and I held my fire for well more than a minute, just to escape the approaching flank from the east, because like I said, the opponents were pushing through that flank and I would not have been able to stay there. So I had to hold my fire for a while. Now I'm going to smoke up here. I know that the Alaska is coming and he's likely to radar me as soon as he sees that smoke. And in fact, I think he is going to end up radaring me here in just a moment, or once he gets into 10-kilometer range. There it is. And I now have gotten targeted. Thankfully, he had HE loaded, but I am going to use the very good acceleration of the Royal Navy light cruisers to scoot out of my smoke and get back into safety. So the maneuverability, I should say, of the Plymouth is essentially identical to the Minotaur. It's got very good acceleration from a standing position. It maneuvers very quickly. In fact, it can gain a little bit of speed at max throttle, if I remember correctly. I know the Minotaur can definitely do that. So for those of you comfortable with the handling characteristics of the Minotaur, you should be quite comfortable with the Plymouth as well. All right, so again, I've cut through until I've gotten back into the middle of the map because we took down the Benson and we've come back in here. And we have a reasonably okay lead, although we have a 2-ship advantage, or a 3-ship advantage, but our point lead isn't that large because the opponents held 2 caps for a long time. I took the chance of firing on the Georgia because he was distracted, but he's now targeted me. He fires his rear turret at me. This is where I'm going to slow and turn in, and these shells are going to drop short. So I'll avoid some damage there, and we're going to finish off the Georgia here. And then I'm going to move forward here just a few moments later to the next cap. So this is very typical of the playstyle I experience with the Royal Navy light cruisers, is that you'll have these periods where you're not doing a whole lot. You're repositioning to a place where it's safe for you to re-engage and actually take advantage of your smoke and your high DPM, which is what I've done when I come over to the Charlie cap. And we're going to be finishing off these opponents. We've gotten a better handle or better lead on the game, having picked up another cap, and we've enlarged our ship advantage, and now it's just a matter of finishing off a few opponents to win the game. So by and large, a very enjoyable ship if you like the Royal Navy light cruisers. I think she is well fit at tier 10. She is very strong, like I said, in terms of her utility. And I think that the current tier is right for where she should be. I'm not sure I see that she's necessarily overpowered, but she is going to be a very feared ship, I think, by opponents where she is supporting caps. And here again, I think this is the third time in the game where this Venezia torps from behind me, but he never ends up hitting me. And we're going to finish off this Conqueror, and that will pretty much end the game for our... or end this particular game. And then I'll cut over to port and we'll review her specifications and my build. Okay, here we are in port with the Plymouth, starting with her armor layout. Again, because she is based on the Edinburgh, she has a very similar or nearly identical armor structure. 16mm bow and stern is going to get overmatched by all large caliber AP in the game. She has this giant Citadel armor belt across 3/4 the length of her ship. That might as well say, shoot me here. So she is a giant Citadel pinata like the Edinburgh, which is why good situational awareness and positioning and so on are crucial to her survivability. Speaking of survivability, her base hit point pool is 41,000. I do have survivability expert on this build, and I'll talk more about that when I get to my commander skills. She has a very nominal torpedo protection damage reduction of 4%. As far as her guns, essentially identical as far as the rifle performance to the Edinburgh. She has a faster reload. Now, the reload listed here is 6 seconds because that's what it was at the end of the testing period and when we were preparing these reviews. But the final official reload that she will have when she is available in the armory will be 6.5 seconds. So she got a very, well, fairly nominal nerf right at the end to adjust her reload. Now, the numbers that I quoted during the gameplay about her DPM does reflect the slightly longer reload. So her base DPM without taking the reload upgrade is 458,000 per minute, and with the reload upgrade in slot 6, it would be 526,000. Now, I have taken the range upgrade, and again, I'll talk more about my build when I get to it. But as far as gun handling, the ballistics, and so on, folks familiar with the Edinburgh will be very comfortable with these. And again, she gets 16 of these guns, and with a slightly faster reload, she does have significantly higher DPM than the Edinburgh. She does have a few secondaries that are nominal from a combat perspective. These are really more for her AA. Getting to torpedoes, she has a quadruple launcher on each side as compared to the Edinburgh, which only has a triple launcher on each side. These can be single launched. They do have 10-kilometer range. They have reasonably good speed, good alpha, and a relatively fast reload at 96 seconds. With her best concealment of 9.2, she can stealth torpedo, and it is kind of nice to have an extra torpedo on both sides. She obviously does not have anywhere near the torpedo capacity as the Minotaur, which has 2 quadruple launchers on each side of the ship. So she's not as strong, obviously, from that perspective, but she still is quite competent on the torpedo front. As far as AA, this is something where she is not as competitive. In fact, she's quite far off the mark as being competitive from a tier 10 cruiser perspective. The Minotaur, if we look at her, has stupidly high DPM at 414 hit points per second. This is among the strongest AA boats, although, again, with all the cynicism about AA in the game right now, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to really make for people emotionally. But numerically, the Plymouth is about 40% lower DPM or DPS on the AA front compared to the Minotaur. So she definitely cannot protect herself as well from an AA perspective. I think she'll do fine against tier 8 carriers, and that's what I found. But against tier 10 carriers, she's going to be much more vulnerable. And the maximum range on the AA is 5.8 kilometers, which is also considerably shorter than the 6.9 kilometer AA range for the Minotaur. All right, as far as maneuverability, she does have very similar handling characteristics to the Minotaur, relatively small turning circle radius for a cruiser at 680 meters per second. The rudder shift is 8.1 seconds, which is pretty good. This does reflect the steering gears modification 2 upgrade in slot 4. And I've got a speed signal on here, so I think her base speed is 31.5 knots. So I've bumped it up to a little over 33. She's reasonably maneuverable, excuse me, and she does get the built-in propulsion modification behavior or characteristics that the other Royal Navy light cruisers get. As far as concealment, very good at 9.2 kilometers. That's the same as on the Edinburgh. Again, this does allow her to stealth torpedo, and with a 10-kilometer radar range, she can also stealth radar, like I mentioned during the gameplay. So good concealment from that perspective. All right, getting to my build, starting with my upgrades. Main armaments modification 1 in slot 1. I took the radar upgrade in slot 2. This increases the radar time from 40 seconds to 48 seconds. So this is a pretty long duration radar and definitely makes her, like I said, a very strong close support cruiser at those caps. For slot 3, I took the main battery modification 2 to give faster turrets because like the Edinburgh, she will outpace her turrets or base turret rotation in hard turns, and this helps to catch things up. Now, you could elect to instead take the aiming systems, but then you will probably want to take expert marksman, which I did not for my Plymouth because I'm modeling the commander based on what I use for my Minotaur. But if you have a specialized commander that you implement for the Plymouth, or if you use your Edinburgh commander, excuse me, you may elect to, or you may prefer to take the aiming systems upgrade in slot 3 and then take expert marksman to give you some better turret speed. Slot 4, steering gears, like I mentioned, she gets the propulsion mod essentially built in. Slot 5, you're definitely going to want to take concealment. Concealment is life, and that definitely applies here, or is most crucial to the Royal Navy light cruisers. And then the last choice here in slot 6 is going to be a significant consideration for players. Now, it may be very tempting to take the main battery modification 3 to give you better reload. If you do that, you probably are going to want to take the main battery modification 2 to recover the loss in the turret traverse. Now, the reload time will go down by 12%, which will bring it down to about 5.9, 5.8 seconds. But the range is going to be 15.3 kilometers, which is pretty constraining in terms of positioning options and things like that. So during my gameplay, I tried both main battery modification 3 for the faster reload, and I also tried the gunfire control system for the better range. And in my experience, the gunfire control system, gave me better flexibility in terms of positioning and firing solutions. So while these shells are relatively floaty, they're not as bad as on the Minotaur. And hitting things at 17 kilometers is doable. You mainly are only going to be going after the big targets like the battleships, but it definitely gives you some good flexibility to have the extra range. So if you elect to pick up the Plymouth, you're going to want to experiment between these two and decide which one might be more useful for you based on how you play and your comfort, with the gun systems. All right, consumables, damage control, obviously. You get repair party. Your base number of charges is 3. I have superintendent, which most Royal Navy commanders take anyway to get the extra charge on the consumables. So 4 repair party charges. You get hydro, you get smoke, and you get the radar, and none of these can be changed. So you don't have the option to pick up a plane like you do with the Edinburgh and so on. All right. So getting to my commander skills, again, this is what I would model based on my Minotaur, you may elect to do something different. In fact, my Edinburgh build is slightly different on my regular account. But the core 4 skills I would take are Priority Target, Adrenaline Rush, Superintendent, and then Concealment. Now, for the close support cruisers like the Royal Navy light cruisers, the U.S. Navy light cruisers, etc., I think that radiolocation is incredibly valuable because it not only allows you to help support your allies trying to take and defend caps, it also gives you some flexibility in understanding where your threats are or where your potential threats are. And again, good situational awareness is crucial to their survivability, and having radiolocation can be very flexible. The Jack of all trades skill is pretty clear, not just because it's a buff skill because I have Andrew Cunningham on the ship, but because this reduces, the reload on the consumables, and the Royal Navy light cruisers tend to be very consumable dependent. The only part here that is probably going to be of some controversy is Survivability Expert. So the Royal Navy light cruisers restore the largest percentage, of damage taken, both Citadel damage and regular damage of 50%. And provided that you can use all of your repair party charges on a Tier 10 Royal Navy light cruiser like the Minotaur or the Plymouth, you will generally get about 6,000 to 7,000 potential additional XP out of the ship. And if you're starting with 41,000, you're talking about a 15+% increase in the total hit point pool of the ship. And that is material. That's on the same order of magnitude as on most destroyers, where this skill is generally considered sort of borderline mandatory or very commonly taken at least. So if you decide that this is not for you, you probably are going to want to take Expert Marksman and Preventative Maintenance. That's what I do for my Edinburgh. This is mostly my Edinburgh build, except that I don't have Survivability Expert. I have Expert Marksman, and I have Preventative Maintenance. So that would be a difference. So again, these would be choices. I'm not a big fan of the Smokescreen Expert, and plus this skill is going to completely disappear once the new Commander skill system comes out, and that was just announced earlier today on the development blog that the new skill system is getting rolled out in 0.10.0. So there isn't much value in, maintaining some sort of dependency or preference to have this skill anyway, because it's going away. So those would be the things I would consider. Vigilance might be useful, especially if you do a lot of smoke camping. But otherwise this is the choice that I would go with as far as build. All right, so let me go back to, let me go to signals before I forget. So Signals, I would take on the ship November Foxtrot to improve the cooldown or reduce the cooldown on consumables, Sierra Mike to improve your speed. You're definitely going to want to take India Delta to increase the rate and amount of hit points you can restore when you are using Repair Party, and then obviously Juliet Charlie. If you find that you're doing a lot of successful torpedoing, you might want to take Juliet Whiskey Uni-1 to increase the chance of flooding. You might consider taking November Echo Seta 7 to improve the AAA a little bit, but again, this ship in my opinion is kind of underclassed from an AA perspective for its tier, so I really don't know how much value that's going to take. The other signals that would definitely be useful here are the X-Ray Papa Uni-1, which increases the action time of the smoke generator by 15%, as well as the Sierra Bravo, which increases the action time of Hydro. And so both of these would definitely be very useful on the Plymouth as well. All right, so let's go back to port. I'll give some final thoughts here. So this is a very capable close support cruiser, like I was saying. I think folks who like the Royal Navy light cruisers would enjoy her very much. She is going to be very comfortable to get into. She does have a few limitations compared to other Tier 10s, especially the Minotaur on the AA front. She does not have the same DPM levels, but she's probably going to be more capable at hitting targets at further ranges than the Minotaur to some extent, depending upon how you play and your comfort, with ballistics. But otherwise, I do think that the Plymouth is going to be very popular with folks that are comfortable with playing these types of cruisers. So is she worth 27,000 steel? I think so if, again, you like that play style. If you are not comfortable with the Royal Navy Light Cruiser play style, I would recommend getting comfortable with it and learning how to play it well before dropping 27,000 steel to pick up this ship. But otherwise, once you have mastered that capability, I think this is going to be a ship that a lot of people are going to like quite a bit. So that's going to wrap up my review of this brand new special tier 10 ship. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.